Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Phil. I run a project management consultancy company called Acando, and thank you first for spending the time late in the day, late on the last day, to listen to me drone on for half an hour. So I'll try to make it fun. I will certainly make it controversial, and unfortunately there's also audience participation involved. So this is the point when the guys sat on the front row move backwards a bit. Okay, we're here to talk about mass. Big word, big subject. All of our projects have mass, and if you look at the things that you have in your projects, you have a PMO, a PSO, a steering group, a meeting, another meeting, another meeting, another meeting, and we seem to really rejoice in building these huge structures around our projects and saying, look at my world, I've got 100 people on this project and all of these committees and all of these groups, and they're not really helping. In fact, they're really hindering the delivery of successful projects. So I'm going to talk about how we change that, reduce the mass on our projects, and hopefully, as a consequence of reducing the mass on our projects, improve our chances of delivering successful projects. Want to have a little exercise to start with. So in the audience, anybody who is delivering a large project right now, if you just stick your hand up for me. Okay, so there's a guy over here. So if you want to come to the front. I didn't tell you this was going to happen, I'm sorry. I'm evil like that. If you just stand there for me, that's absolutely perfect. Anybody delivering a small project? This is where nobody sticks their hands up because I know what's happening now. Anybody delivering a small project? Okay, come on, stand to the front. So we've got a guy delivering a big project and we've got a guy delivering a small project. So, my gentleman delivering a big project, what structures have you got in your project?
What do you mean?
Do you have a PMO? Or do you have PMO resource working on your project?
Not necessarily. We've got different kind of terminologies. I come from a construction background.
Okay.
We've got a project manager, a construction management team, a lot of supporting functions,
okay,
and the site team, etc., the engineers.
I don't know if that works.
So, no, the answer.
Okay. Do you have meetings?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Lots of meetings. How many meetings do you have a week?
Personally, maybe half of my calendar is meetings.
Okay, so I need 3 volunteers to stand up and come join this guy to represent his meetings. Excellent, so that's your meetings. What else do you have in your project that gives your project mass? Huge budget.
A lot of, I don't know if that's what you're looking for, but a lot of procedures.
Excellent, project procedures. Documentation, quality control. Okay, somebody to stand up to represent health and safety and document control and procedures. Anybody to stand up and join him. What else? Internal audit all over your work?
Oh yeah.
Right, internal audit. Somebody for internal audit. Who's an internal audit? A gentleman there. Come join us for internal audit. What else?
We've got a client who is very hands-on, so they kind of mirror our structure. So
excellent. So the client's got exactly the same as what you've got back in-house, just for safety measures. Excellent. So we need another 1, 2, 3, 4. No, let's just have one. One more person to represent the client. This is the last one. Your last chance to star. What we have here is our big project. What I want you all to do is to grab hold of this guy. Every one of you, grab hold of this guy.
Oh no.
So this is your big project with all your mass on it. This is our wonderful small project over here, what we're trying to emulate. We're going to have a race. What I need you to do is to go all the way around the perimeter of the chairs and back to this point. You guys have got to stay together because you're a project team. You've got an opportunity to go do it on your own. Okay? There's no bets. So, on your marks, get set, go! All the way back to where you started. Stay together, project team. This is a very slow race. A small project's in the lead, is coming round the final bend. It's not even breaking a sweat. Small project wins. Oh, big project. What went wrong? Okay, thank you guys. If you'd like to sit down, hand of applause for the volunteers. Thank you. Now, I know that's all a little bit silly. It's all a lot silly. But it's trying to emphasize a point that big things are very slow to move. Big things need a lot of energy to move. Big things are very, very difficult to stop. And big things are even more difficult to change direction. I've tried this before. I get them to change direction halfway, but it was a disaster. So we didn't do that today. And that just shows that a little bit. It's the same on projects. Your big projects are very, very hard to slow down, very, very hard to change direction, and take a huge amount of energy to even get going in the first place. Your small projects, nimble, quick, no problems. Great quote by Einstein. This guy wrote this quote 1930s, and you're reading it now and you think, it makes a huge amount of sense 80 years ago, and it still makes a huge amount of sense. Any fool can make things bigger, more complex and more violent. It takes a touch of genius and a lot of courage to move in the opposite direction. What we're going to look at now are how we move in the opposite direction, slim down our projects, make them smaller, more nimble, and hopefully more successful. Before I start, word of warning, you can't do this on all projects. You can't do all the things I'm going to talk about on all projects. You can do some of them on most projects. You can do a lot of them on a lot of projects, but you won't be able to do them all on all projects. I'll just say that now because that's normally the first hand that goes up when I finish. Before I started writing this, I did a bit of Google research. I always start my research on Google to see what all the other wackos in the world are saying about project management and what their views are. And I did a Google research on how to make projects simpler. And I typed in all the words like make projects simpler, simpler projects. And I got back 2 pearls of wisdom. Pearl of wisdom number 1, write a checklist. Pearl of wisdom number 2, work as a team. And I thought, geez, I'm really not inspired. If that's the best we can do to make projects simpler, I'm really not inspired. So hopefully I've got a few more pearls of wisdom here. These are my own personal thoughts. What gives me the right to stand here and tell you what my thoughts are? A little bit on my background. I run a project management consultancy company. We've got about 200 project managers in our organisation, delivering about 200 different projects. And I've been managing those types of teams for about 10 years. So I've seen about 2,000 project managers deliver 2,000 projects in pretty much every industry vertical. And it's kind of that sort of experience that's pulled into here to hopefully give you guys a few ideas on how to make projects simpler. So let's look at how we reduce mass. None of these are revolutionary or groundbreaking, but I can guarantee most of you won't be doing most of these. So number 1, do the simplest possible thing you can to achieve the outcome you need. I'll give you an example from one of my customers. In fact, this is an example from one of my customers. They have this written on the wall. They have a large project team, and they have this written on the wall of the project team. Do the simplest possible thing you can to achieve the outcome you need. Their project is they wanted to do some sales reporting. It's a global company. They work in 50 countries throughout the world, and they wanted to do some sales reporting. So every day, the salespeople had the latest sales figures on their iPad. And they have a number of different systems they're using to take the data to report from. So they have SAP, they have some Microsoft systems, they have some bespoke systems developed in some of their smaller countries. And the way they've done the project is the way 9 out of 10 of us would think about doing that project. We build a data warehouse and we get all the systems to put all of their data in the data warehouse. We have what's called a master data management exercise, trying to make sure that apples over here are the same as apples in that country over there, the same as apples in that country over there. And of course they're not, so there's a huge amount of logic written to make the data make sense. We stick it all in a massive data warehouse, we put a business intelligence solution over the top of it, and we churn out hundreds of reports. They're 5 years into their program, having spent $185 million on the program. And today they haven't delivered one single report to one single person. Okay? Do the simplest possible thing you can to achieve what you need. Here was our recommendation to that client. Why don't you write 50 reports, one for each country, off whatever the local system is, and email it to your salespeople? So they tried it. 3 weeks later, the solution is fixed and working, and 12,500 salespeople have reports in their email. And we forget that sort of thing. We try to build these huge structures and these huge complicated projects, and sometimes it just needs a little different way of thinking. Do the simplest possible thing you can. They spent £500,000 and fixed the problem. They wasted 185 million trying to do it the complicated way. And sometimes we try to do things the complicated way rather than trying to do it simply. Number 2, make everyone a project manager. There's an author that I like called Daniel Pink, and he writes on motivation strategies. And he did a piece of research about what motivates people. And it's a great piece of research, and I recommend reading it if you get a moment. What he did was he created a menial task, like you find in production lines around the world. And he got a bunch of college students, and he said, for each one of these menial tasks you complete, you will get 10 cents. He's American, so he gives them 10 cents. And he got another bunch of college students and said, please complete these menial tasks for which you are getting no reward. The group who had no reward were 20% more productive than the group that had the reward. And all the people who looked at the research and said, yeah, that's great, but 10 cents doesn't mean anything to an American college student. You've not really rewarded them. So he repeated the exercise in India. And in India, the people who completed the exercise could make a week's wages in an hour by doing this game. So now the reward is meaningful. And the results were exactly the same. Those guys in India who were given a week's wages for completing as many of these activities as they could in an hour were less productive than those who were given nothing for completing the same activity in the same time frame. And that's because, and it's now a well understood reason, that's because people are not motivated by money. It's a simple fact. We're all sitting here thinking, well, I am. I could love some more money. But a simple fact, when it comes to task-based systems, people are not motivated by money. People are motivated by feeling they have a purpose, by feeling they made a difference, by feeling they contributed to something. And on your projects, if you make everyone a project manager, you give everyone the ability to feel like they're having a contribution and having a purpose. So take everybody involved in a project, whatever task they're doing, tell them to write the project plan, tell them to give you the risks and the issues log. It does a whole bunch of things. It means, one, you're not doing it. So you're not doing the risks and issue logs and the project planning. It takes a huge amount of that overhead out of the project delivery. But also you get commitment from those people. When it's their plan, it's their risk log, it's their issue log. It's like the Daniel Pink exercise of paying people and not paying people. You'd be surprised what commitment you get to deliver the things that they have told you they will deliver. Your projects will be more productive and you'll just achieve more with less overhead. So make everybody a project manager. Next one, under-engineer. This is a really interesting one if you do this on a project. And I go back to the example I gave of the $185 million wasted on the reporting project. When we decided to do it as a single reporting exercise, writing a report and emailing it out, we then challenged even more and said, let's under-engineer it. To which we got some strange looks, and we said, well, what the purpose of under-engineering is assume you can now only deliver 20% of what you want to deliver. That's all we're going to do, 20%. Which 20% are you going to have? And in this particular example that we had here with this customer, their 5 reports that they wanted to deliver became 1. Their 1 report which had 20 data items in it became 8 data items, and we delivered 1 report with 8 data items. And we put it into production and we rolled it out, and we left it rolled out for 3 months, and then we went back to them and we said, you asked for 4 extra reports originally, an extra 12 data fields. Do you want us to do them now? And they said, no, what we've got works. Gives us 80% of what we need. We can leave the rest. And we don't ask those questions on our projects. We just assume that everything everybody has asked for, we need to deliver. So under-engineer, plan to under-engineer, plan to do less. And this isn't the same as being agile. Quite a lot of these components have similarities to agile. This isn't the same as agile development. I'm not saying do less and then go back and do a little bit more and a little bit more. I'm saying do less and stop. That is the size of the project. We try to do too much in our projects, and not everything we do is adding value. So Do less. Next one. Decision making at the last responsible time. The least responsible time would be an appalling way to make decisions. Decision making at the last responsible time. This comes down to how we do project planning and when we do project planning, the sort of focus we put into project planning. Let's be really, really honest. Your project plans are a guess. They are nothing more than a guess. They are nothing better than a guess. Your project plan, I guarantee you, will not be correct. You will not deliver to your project plan. So why try? Why spend all of that time putting all of that effort into project planning? Accept the fact it's a guess, make a guess, move on into delivering it. You are better able to make the decisions when the time comes, the decision has to be made, because at that particular moment you have more information than you have in a planning cycle. At the particular moment when X needs doing and it has to be done today, you've got all the information you didn't have in the planning cycle and you can make a better decision. And you're making the decision once and you're moving on. If you do all the planning cycle and put all of the thought process into, is that the right thing to do? Let's do some scenario analysis, let's have a plan for that and a plan for that and a plan for that. It will come to actually delivering it and you'll throw them all out because none of them will be right, because now you've got more information and you're doing something different. So do it at that point in time. Don't try and do it before that point in time. Another great quote by Einstein again, and it was interesting really when you think, again, this is so long ago in the past. So concepts that have proven useful in ordering things easily achieve such authority over us that we forget their earthly origins and accept them as unalterable givens. This is how most people work with their project plans. We created the project plan, let's call it a project guess, because that's what it really is. We created a project guess, and all of a sudden when it comes to delivering on one of the items in the project guess, we feel that we have to do it. The plan says I must do this. Why? You wrote the plan. If it's wrong, throw it out, do something different. But we feel compelled to these things we created to do the things they're telling us to do. And I see so many project teams just really delivering what the plan says because the plan says we must. It's your plan. Throw it out if it's no good, and we don't do that often enough. It also helps to make your decisions late if you throw out your plan every now and again. Number 5, nothing can take more than 2 weeks. Anybody familiar with an organisation called 37 Signals? Okay, so a couple of guys putting their hands up. 37 Signals is a fantastic organisation, absolutely phenomenal organisation. They created a product called Basecamp, which they say is a project management product, but really it's a collaboration tool. Some of you may know Basecamp, but may not know 37 Signals. They created a product called Ruby on Rails, which is a programming language on which many internet applications are written. They turn over millions and millions and millions of pounds every year and make millions and millions and millions in profit. They are 16 people. They have never met face to face. They work in 8 different cities throughout the world on 2 different continents. And every single thing they do takes no more than 2 weeks. They refuse to run anything that takes no more than 2 weeks. They've written Ruby on Rails, Basecamp. They make tons of money because they have a different approach to the way they do things. Again, this isn't agile. I'm not saying do a 2-week sprint and then replan and do another 2-week sprint. I'm saying make things take 2 weeks. So do it on a waterfall-based approach. I'm going to do project planning. That will take 2 weeks. I'm going to do some design. That'll take 2 weeks. I'm going to do some build phases. I might have 3 build phases. That's 3 lots of 2 weeks. I'm going to do testing. That'll take 2 weeks. I'm going to do a rollout. That'll take 2 weeks. There you go. That's my project estimating done. Move on. It's only a guess anyway. So it really reinforces that guessing mentality. And actually, take 2 weeks on those things, because if you take 2 weeks on those things, you under-engineer them, because you have to deliver something in 2 weeks. You make them as simple as you possibly can, because you have to deliver them in 2 weeks. So take everything down to delivering in 2 weeks. Be brave, say nothing is going to get done if it can't be done in 2 weeks, because it's too big, and we don't like maths because maths moves slowly, and maths takes a huge amount of time to change and stop, and all those things. Number 6, do less and do it less well. We all seem to have a inbuilt mechanism to say, I have to do this bit perfectly, and I have to do everything. I feel like I'm contributing more if I'm overloaded with work, and I end up never sleeping, and I'm there, the last one there in the project office. I think we should do less, and I think we should do less well. Do things less well. Some of you may have seen this. It's Stephen Covey's work in terms of how you prioritize which things you do and how you do them. And I'm a huge fan of this. A lot of you will have seen it. I bet almost none of you use it. And it's incredibly powerful. You have 4 boxes, and when you want to do something, you put it in one of the 4 boxes. You either say, this task is urgent and important, and it goes in your top left box. This task is urgent, but it is not important to me, and it goes here. Might be important to the project, but not important to me, it goes here. If it's not urgent, but it's still important to do, bottom left, and not urgent and not important, bottom right. The trick comes in what you do with these things. So take all your tasks, take all your project activities, take your project plans, put them in this sort of schematic. These things, bin them. Don't do them. Don't even try and do them. The things that are not urgent and not important, do not do. Scrub them off, take them out of the plan, throw them away. They are pointless. They are adding no value to your project. If they were, they'd be important. So don't do them. The things that are urgent but not important to you, you have choices. You can not do them, you can delegate them to somebody else, or you can do them less well. And that's the favourite, do them less well. These are some things that maybe your boss has put on your desk and said, you need to do this, or maybe a stakeholder has said, you need to do this. If it's not important to the deliverable and the outcome of the project, don't waste your time on it. Do as good a job as needs doing to get it past whatever rigour it needs to get past, then move on. We seem to try to perfect everything. Things in here, they're not worth perfecting because it isn't important. It's not going to achieve the outcome of your project. 2 boxes on the left are the ones that you do. The urgent and important things you do now because they're urgent. The not urgent and important things you plan to do. And you do those things eventually. In an ideal world, you have about 80% of your time is spent in a not urgent and important box. In reality, when they do time motion studies on people, do a time motion study on yourself, you'll spend 80% of your time on these sorts of activities. People don't spend their time on the value-adding stuff. And if you go to Covey's research, he's done huge amounts of research, as have authors beyond Covey, doing time motion studies on this, and they show you where people spend their time. It's always startling to look at. So do less well, do things less well, do them things in the top right box. Don't try to do them perfectly. So a challenge to you guys out in the audience to end with. Think about your own projects, think about the things that you're currently doing in your work, and think about one thing that you have to do that is adding no value to what you're trying to achieve on your project. And the moment I say that, one thing sprang into everybody's head. Everybody went, oh, that's the Tuesday morning meeting, or that's the report I have to write for the stakeholder because he wants it in that format and won't take the same format everybody else does, or that's, and something sprung into everybody's head. You know what it is. You can think of that one thing. Anybody brave enough to stick their hand up and shout out what the one thing they're going to stop doing is? Let's commit right here, right now to do something different. Let's stop doing things we shouldn't be doing. Who wants to commit to something? Yeah. Timesheets, perfect. Absolutely. Stop doing them. If they're not adding value to you, not adding value to your project, why do them? Unless you only get paid if you do a timesheet. Then it's important. Anybody else want to stick their hand up something that they're going to stop doing? Come on, you all had something go through your mind when I said think of that one thing. Yeah.
I've already done this, and I was having a 2-weekly meeting with the whole team.
Yep.
And I just forget it. If I need to meet people, I'll meet them individually, or I'll do it on the phone, or whatever.
Okay. So you used to have this gentleman here, for those that can't, used to have a 2-weekly meeting with his team, just scrapped it. Has it caused any problems?
Only for people who want to be overly involved in things. But yeah, it's
The project's still going to deliver what it was supposed to deliver?
probably better, actually.
Project's going to deliver better than it should have delivered, would have delivered. Great. So stop the meeting, that's not adding any value. And we all go to, where's the guy who had half of his diary filled in meetings? Work out which one of those you think, oh, here we go, this meeting again. Scrap it. It's your project, you're in charge. Somebody put you in charge, scrap it. It's not adding value. Why are you doing it? So think hard about what you can stop doing and go back to work tomorrow and stop doing something, because we're all doing things we shouldn't be doing. Summary. All projects have too much mass. We have PMOs, we have PSOs, we have steering groups, we have report after report after report, meeting after meeting after meeting. They are not helping you deliver the outcome that you're trying to deliver in your project. So 7 quick tips based on some things I've seen work effectively in those environments to reduce the mass of your project, simplify your project. Simple things are easier to deliver well. So do the simplest thing you can to achieve the outcome you need. Think about the reporting example I gave. Make everybody a project manager. You end up doing less of the chasing for project people. People feel more committed to what they've told you they will do, and they do it, and your projects become more successful. Under-engineer. Stop doing things that aren't adding value to your projects. Just don't do them. Do 20% of the requirements, and you'll find out that 9 times out of 10, that's enough. Make decisions at the last possible time. Recognize that plans are guesses, and there is very little point in spending weeks and months guessing what your project's going to turn out like, because it won't. So make your decisions later. Don't do anything if it can't be done in 2 weeks. 2 weeks is a manageable chunk that you can manage nice and easily, and you get quick deliverables all the time. Do less and do it less well. Find out what you shouldn't be doing. Something that someone else has given you that isn't on your priority list. Just do it less well. Do it okay, but don't put it in an Excel spreadsheet and make it all nice with headers and footers and prints and all the right colours. Just write it on a bit of paper. There you go. Done. Save yourself some time. We're wasting loads too much time. And then think of something that you're doing today that you should just stop doing, because we all have things and we should just stop doing them. That's it. Over to you guys for questions if there are any. Yes, gentleman in the middle. I have a mic for you.
How does this philosophy in finance start with project officers and formal project methodologies?
How does it go down with clients who have big project offices and formal project methodologies? It depends. So if I did that presentation to an audience who had big project offices and big project methodology, it would go down very badly, and they would say, you're wrong, we need all this structure, we need all this control, we can't run projects without it, you haven't got a clue what you're talking about, and then they'd go off. If I'd been into that organisation, found a £185 million project which had delivered nothing, change it into a £500,000 project which delivers value in 2 weeks, because we've got the 2-week thing, then they'd listen. Then they'd say, yeah, you might have something here, let's talk about it. But it goes down badly because people like to build their fiefdoms. They like to say, look at all these things I'm responsible for and I'm in charge of. And there's that sort of mentality to get over, which is really hard. It's built in the Western culture, unfortunately. Gentleman here. I'm not sure if this is working. Maybe it is.
Are invited by organizations to look at their projects. How do you proceed in analyzing the situation?
Okay.
To make your information.
Sure. So the question is, how do we analyse projects when we're invited in to analyse organisations? We have a methodology and an assessment method, well, a discovery methodology to start with and an assessment methodology. It's our intellectual property, but clients who use us get to see it. I can put some of it up on our website if people are interested. It's acando.com. I'll put some of it up on a website so you can have a taster of it if you like. I'm quite happy to do that. But it's just a rigorous assessment process of saying, what is the project objective? What are you trying to achieve? What are the parts of the project? Let's make sure then parts of the project are helping achieve that objective. If they're not, they're candidates for deletion or just not doing. And then digging into a bit more detail on those candidates to check that they are sensible things to stop doing or delete. And it's interesting. You go through the same exercise we've gone through here. Let's deliver 20% of the requirements. And then go to the people who own the requirements and say, which 20% do you want first? And they'll pick the 20% out for you and say, just so you know, I'm not doing the other 80. You won't get as much kickback as you think you will. Most of them go, that's how projects go here. Actually, people tell us they're going to deliver 100. They actually only ever deliver 20 anyway. So yeah, go for it, deliver 20. You can always tell them we'll deliver the other 80 later, but they won't want you to. So you go through those sorts of things. Do those on your own projects. They're reasonably easy to do. Thank you all for your time. Enjoy the rest of the show.